last video, you learned how to do ideation and how to be good at problem solving. Now in this video, we're going to specifically talk about how you're going to design transactional experiences. And these experiences are pretty much everywhere around you. No matter where you look, these are experiences that you have around you, right from Amazon to Facebook to Google to YouTube. Wherever you look, transactional experiences are there, and this is an essential skill for any designer. Usually the kinds of tasks that you would get is somebody might say, hey, can you create an app that does Y for me? Can you digitize this offline experience? Or can you simplify a certain app? Or can you make the process easier? Or can you make the process faster? Or can you reduce the number of errors? So these are the common kinds of tasks that you would be given as a designer. To get a better sense of it, how does this work? So essentially, any interactive design is taking some data from the user, calculating or doing some kind of an operation on that, and figuring out what the user wants to see and presenting that appropriate information to them. Let's take the example of YouTube. So the first time you went to YouTube, YouTube doesn't know anything about you, so it's just giving you some general information, right? However, let's say now you start searching for UX related content. Now, when you searched, you're providing some information to the system. Then the system is trying to figure out, well, what videos are you watching? What videos have you liked? What videos have you commented on? And what channels have you subscribed to? Using this information, the system is trying to figure out, well, what are your interests? And once the system figures out your interests, the next time you go to the same experience, you will start noticing more videos of the type that you liked before. And this is a classic example of how a system takes data from you, either in a way that's more explicit, where you're liking or commenting, or in a more implicit manner, where you just watch something and the system is trying to figure out what is it that you want, and then converting that into a meaningful output, such as the results or the pages that you see when you come back to that experience. So that is a very simple example of a recommender system. You would see the same thing on Facebook, Netflix, where systems are trying to learn, take information from you, figure out what is it that you want, and then provide that information back to you. Traditionally, the way you would learn to design transactional experiences is essentially you sit down and you try to figure out what are all the design elements that are available. Maybe it's text boxes, radio buttons, check boxes, etc., etc., etc. Then what you would do is you would learn to design all of these different elements into a screen. Then you learn how to make it look good and you ship it. The problem when it comes in the workplace is that most of these solutions may or may not work. You really have no idea whether it's working or not. The second problem that you'll realize is you would struggle to convince your team, why is my solution the best solution? Okay. And the third problem that you would actually face in this kind of an environment is you would end up making a lot of mistakes. And I've seen countless designers lose credibility in their workplace because of these mistakes. To better understand how to design transactional experiences, I'm going to give you a very simple example. Let's consider that you work in the French embassy in the United States. You are now tasked with creating a form that allows people to upload their documents and including information such as their date of birth. So the question for you is, how would you accept the date of birth? So when you think about that, there's a very interesting challenge, because certain cultures might take data in the form of month, day, and year. Other cultures might say day, month, and year. So when you're designing a form, you have to design to make sure, in this case, the key metric that you need to design for is you want to reduce the number of errors. So when you look at this, take a second. There are 4 alternatives. I want you to take a second and look at all these 4 alternatives and tell me which alternative is the best one for this specific context. So in this case, if your goal was to reduce errors, given the different way that people write their dates of birth, your best solution would probably be B or C. Because at this point, your goal is to reduce errors, and B or C ensures that there is no ambiguity in the date of birth that is being entered. However, let's take a different use case. What if you wanted to do speed? You didn't necessarily care about making errors, but you wanted to allow people to type it in faster. in which case your solution A or D would probably be a better outcome. So again, when you start thinking from a transactional experience perspective, you need to know how these different elements work. So the pragmatic way of doing transactional experiences is about knowing the theory for UI elements. However, you also need to know how to combine these different elements to influence outcomes. For example, do you left align the label or do you right align the label? Okay. One alignment allows you to kind of get the job done faster. The other alignment allows you to get the job done more accurately. The second thing that you would also need to learn is you need to learn how to define the core metrics of success. So before you start designing, you need to be thinking about what are my metrics of success, and you need to know how your designed experience influences their core metric. And that is the pragmatic way of doing it to make sure you're successful at work. In the next video, we're going to talk about how to learn visual design. This is one of those topics that is probably most obvious as far as employers are concerned. And this is also one of those topics that has a lot of conflicting opinions when you go online.